All right, so good evening once again. Um,
Good evening.
so we will just, I'm still going to dedicate the whole of this class. Probably tomorrow I will start looking at data analysis with Python proper. But I still feel there are still few things we need to understand before we can dive into using Python for analysis. So far, so good. We think the last topic we discussed was on variables, and I explained the concept of variable in programming generally. That variables are mechanisms which are used to introduce external data into the program memory, which simply means that you have certain data you want to work with, and they are not stored in the program. So you want to introduce them in order to use them to program. So that was what we did last time. Now, I want to start with data type in this section. Data type in this section. Data type in this section. Let's start with data types. So what do we actually mean with data type? Now, we have to see programming as a language. We have to see programming as a language, just like our normal language. So every language requires certain information to be spoken. So the same thing, since we want to speak a programming language called Python, we need to know what are the informations that can be used to program with Python. So Python has several built-in data types that can be used to store and manipulate data. So we are going to be looking at some of them. So like I said, there are different types of data that can be used to store and manipulate data in Python. So I'm going to group all of these data type into two sets. So the first set is what we know as primitive data type. Primitive data type. So what we mean by primitive? These are primary data type. In other words, they are the basic data type that you must be familiar with. There is no way you program with any programming language without involving the primitive data type. So they are the basic data type, and they are non-avoidable. You cannot avoid them. So, and when you are learning programming, the sequence is that after knowing comments, after learning variable concepts, the next thing is for you to know what data types are. So like I said, we have the data type in two groups. Just try to summarize them. So we have the reference or the composite data type. So most time we refer to this one as primary data type, same thing as data type. And then most time we also refer to this as multiple structure. Multiple structure data type. Multiple structure data type. And then as we go on, you are going to see why they are referred to as multiple data structure. Now, let me start with the first set, which is primitive. So under the primitive, we are starting with the first one, which is called the string. The word string, we have string. Let me just mention them first before I start focusing on them one after the other. We have a number. We have numbers. We have Boolean. We have Boolean. Then number 4, we have undefined. Undefined. So these are undefined or null. So these are the primitive data type we are talking about, which are already built in Python. So just to pick them one after the other, I just want to explain each of them with variable concepts so that we can understand how to actually work with these various data types. So I'm starting with the string. So the string data type is the same thing as text. Any data type that's in form of text in programming, we refer to that as what? String. And let's say I want to use variable to explain it. So if I say name, or let me check the variables I've used. Okay, so let's say I have name. The name equals to, and then what I want to store in this string, in this variable, is a string data type. There is a rule that says if you are storing string value in a variable, it must be quoted either with single or double. So for me to quote any form of text, it means that I have acknowledged the type of the value I am storing in the variable as string, because string means text, and there is no function in Python that decode it to be string except you quote it. Once you do not quote it, Python is going to find it difficult to understand what type of data it's working with. Now, just like we have been learning, so if I want to print the string, all I need to do is to consult Python printing method. Then I'll simply supply the name of the variable that is currently holding the string. So if I run it, and then I get it. Now, we also adopted a system. I showed us a system that can help us to print only part of your string value. For example, I want to print letter P from that string variable. I said you can simply say print, and then you select the name of the variable, and then you bring in the square brackets, and then you supply the index number, where I told us that all values in a string array or Python array are represented with numerical positioning, that is number, where the first one is at 0 index because there is nothing before it. So if I run this, it will print out only P. Now, how do I also print? In case you're adapting whether this is actually what string, you want to use a function to find out what type of data is actually stored in name. So let's say there is an argument regarding to what type of data is that out of this primitive. So I'll say, okay, to print, to know, let me use the word to know the type of data in a string, in a variable. To know the type of data in a variable, so I can simply use the type function. So using, this is actually the function we use in achieving that, using the type function. So there is an inbuilt function called type in Python, which is used to check the type of data stored in a variable. So if I want to check for the name, so I'll simply say print as the principal function. Then I will nest the type inside type. I will say type. Then I will supply the name of the variable I want to know what is stored inside. So if I run this, it will tell me that what? Yes, str is string constructor, which means that that is the inbuilt function to initiate string. So what we are saying is that before now, before you can create string, this is how you will have declared it. So let's say I say name2 equals to, then I will have done something like this before I can quote it. But as programming advances, we have grown beyond that level where we have to define the type of data we are storing in a variable while we are declaring the variable. So Python is now dynamically typed programming language, which means that it's the one that sorts out. Your work is just to throw the value in the variable. It will find out to decode the type of data you are adding in a variable by itself because of the advancement. So it's one of those things that have made programming easier today. But most of the programming language we have today, they are dynamically typed programming languages. Now, the next data type I want to discuss is number data type, like I mentioned. Number data type. But before we look at the number data type, I want to quickly explain some string functions so that we know that I'm done with everything that I have to do with string. So let's look at some manipulative or manipulation string functions in Python, which means that these functions are only useful when you are dealing with Python. Sorry, when you are dealing with string as data type. For example, look at the value we store in name. If I want to know how many characters are in name variable. So there's a way I will use a function to count. So what I'm going to simply do is to say print, and then I will put len inside, and then I will supply the variable I want to count the value in it, which is what? Name. So if I run this, it will tell me that what? There are 7 characters in name. So you can also print string multiple times using a technique. So what I will simply do is to say print, all these are Python string manipulation functions. That is, you are using them to re-engineer or process what you have stored in a variable. So if I submit the name, if I say name and I say times 10, what I'm simply doing is that it should print that prosper 10 times. So these are some logic you can use. Now, another one I want to print is that I want to print using Python lowercase. So there's another function called lowercase or does lower. What it does is we have dot lower, and then we have upper. We have upper. So I'm going to play with this function. Now, if the value you store in a variable is already in small letter, so if I come here now and I put dots, that is concatenation. Dots in programming means concatenation, particularly in Python. It means you want to join two things together. Now, I have declared the name of the variable and I have stored Prosper inside the variable. What I want to achieve now is I want to print out the Prosper, but by the time it's output like this, it will have been converted to a capital letter. So I will concatenate what? Upper. I will just end it like this. So if I run it again, if I run this, you can see it that I have concatenated this function to the variable, and the variable has been outputted as what? Uppercase. So if the value you store here is in capital letter, let's say Prosper, and I want to print it out as lowercase, so I will put what? Lowercase. I will just put lower, and then if I print it, it will convert it to what? Small letter. I hope we are following, please. Let me get a response from any of you if I proceed.
Yes.
All right. So we are still on Python, Python manipulation string function. They are strictly for string. You cannot apply them when you are dealing with other type of data. So you can go and play around with them. So what I'm giving us this as an assignment so that I can move, because they are very simple to apply. So sometime you can do something like this in case you want to know other functions that can be used to manipulate string. You can just say dir, open a bracket, put str, which represents string. If you run it, it will print out all that function. You can see from here, we use what? Lower, we use upper. All these functions, go and learn them, the ones you can learn. But this is the short way you can display functions that can be used to manipulate what type of data. So what I did here is that what? Directory. Then I give it str, which represents string, which means that what? Help me to display functions that can be used to manipulate string. For example, there are some that we use often. We have, let me see. So you can go on your own and study them because they are much. That is why I don't want to waste my time, because we are just learning Python basics, which just a way of grounding us before we go into the analysis. So, but admin, you are learning pure Python for app development. You have to take your time to find out what you can actually do with each or most of these functions. So I leave us with that as an assignment. You can go to one of the best way you can find out all this. If you don't want to relate to them, you can just go to you can just open a browser. Let me show you how you can expand your research on this. I want us to go there and exploit these resources. So just open a browser and type Python documentation, Python documentation. That will take you to Python library, where so many things we are learning are documented that you can take your time to study and understand where it matters to what you want to do or the field you are in. Okay, so someone can actually go straight to data analysis without going through all this. But the reason why I am going this way, I just feel that before we start speaking a programming language in data analysis, it is ideal that we understand the basics. That is why I'm trying to use this to, give us some confidence so that when we start analyzing, most of these techniques I'm using will be playing out. So if I type Python documentation, Python documentation, that will take you to, you can see it now, Python 3 point this documentation. So if you click here to take you to a library, so let me just take us further a little so that you know how to navigate. So in case you want to take your Python skill to the next level, this is where you can exploit so many things, depending on what, there are resources. Now you can see, if you want to talk about module, what is distribution Python model, library reference. So you can exploit one of them and see what it contains. You can come here and search data type and search depending on what you want to get from this library. So let's see what comes out. So you can as well search Python functions documentation or Python string documentation. So there are so many keywords you can actually use that can take you to where you might, or you will definitely get what you are looking for. So just take your time and go through all that. All right, so now let's quickly talk about another data type in Python. So please just give me a few minutes. I'll be back. Why? All right, so that is all about a string as one of the primitive data type in Python. So I want to talk about number type. So numbers are, sorry, I need to. Okay, so like I was saying, I want to talk about number. So number is another type of data in Python. So in Python programming, we also work with number, not just string. So number can be described as integer or floats. So which means that under number data type, we have two types of them. We have, if a number in programming is not an integer, it will be floats. You need to understand that. So the difference between integer number and float number is float number or integer number are whole number, while float number are number with decimal points or units. For example, if I want to use a variable concept to explain all this. So I want to create a variable of number. So I will say, okay, S, I think I have S somewhere. Let's say number 1 is equals to 90. So 90 is an integer number type. How do I know? The whole number. Then if I say number 2, if I say number 2 equals to 90.5, the moment it carries the decimal points, it becomes a float number. So sometimes we can as well refer to it as double number. Double number. Can refer to it as double number. So what makes it double? Because these two numbers, you are combining two in one. That is what it means. Because 90 can stand alone and 0.5 can as well stand alone, but you merge them together. So that is why in programming, most time we refer to the float number as double, as you might find it in some programming materials. Now, we can also perform simple arithmetic calculation with numbers stored in variable. So let's say we want to perform simple arithmetic calculation with Python numbers, let's say variable. So for example, if I am asked to, I want to apply that same concept that I use in checking what type of number or what type of data are stored in these two variables. So I will still use the Python print method, and then I will next type inside and then supply the name of the variable with the value I want to check its data type. So if I run this, it's going to tell me that what is a string. So let me wait to see. So the error is typographical error. So I have to come here and type the correct word and then write. So you can see that it's telling me that the type of data you have in number one variable is what? An integer. So like I just said, those days, before you store numbers in variable, this is how you will have gone about it. So you write equals to, you write int using the constructor before you now say 90. But because nowadays programming language are dynamically typed programming language, you don't need to tell Python the type of data. Once you follow the syntax, it will decode or it will find out the type of data you are storing in it. That is why we just call the variable name, declare the assignment operator, and we were not interested in educating Python that whether this is an integer or not. But at the end of the day, Python was able to decode it to be an integer. So I want to check whether this is float. Like I said, I want to know the difference between the value in number 2 and the value in number 1. So what I will do is just to change this to number 2. If I run it, you see that what Python was able to decode it as float. So that is just to confirm that we are in the right direction. So when I said any number with decimal points is called float, now we just confirm that. So to perform those simple calculations, let's say I am asked to multiply the value stored in number 1 variable by the value stored in number 2 variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create the calculator before I output the container or the variable holding the calculator. So now I'll simply, just to make my work easier, all right, so just to make my work easier, the first thing I'm going to do is to create another variable and store the calculation value or answer. So I can say, okay, total is equals to, take what you have in take the value in number 1. Then asterisk is our multiplication in programming. That is shift and 8. Then multiply the value in number 1 variable by the value in number 2 variable. So if I run it now, the calculation has been done and the value is what? Stored here. Now, to print it, to view the result, to see the answer, so simply call the name of the variable, or you print, say print total, that we output the answer. Okay, so you can change the operator to plus, and then it will perform different calculation. That is for addition of 2 numbers. So I have to execute this cell. Before it can reflect. If I change it to this, that is the symbol for division. If I run it, it will give me the division value. If I change it to percentage, that is not division, that is modulus. Modulo means that what? It will, how many times will number in the value in number 1 variable will go into what? Number 2 variable. And then what will be the remainder? That is what this one will print. So if I run it, can you see that it will go into what? 90 1 times, and then it will remain, it will print the remainder. That is what printed out here based on what we put here. So if I change here to, let's say what, number 2, and I change here to number 1. So if I print it, you see that what? It will print the remainder, which is what? After 90, whatever that remains. So in programming, this operator is called modulus. So you need to also know about programming operators. Programming operators, they are like signs or symbols which denotes an expression. So we need to understand them. Asterisk means times, plus means addition, subtraction means hyphen, and then slash means division. So you need to know, you can go and study about Python operators. Now, let's talk about another type of data, which is called Boolean. We are still under the primitive data type. I think I need to remove this line. Just press escape and D 2 times. Now, let's talk about the Boolean as another type of Python basic data type. So every Python programmer is expected to understand all these data types because we work with them when programming with Python. So let's look at Boolean data type. So what is Boolean data type? Boolean data type actually is used, or let's say is logical value that can be either true or false. Logical value that can either be what? True or false. So in other words, it's part of the built-in function or data type in Python that can be used for decision making. So most times the Boolean value, they are used for decision making, true or false. The best way I will explain it for you to understand it is that, let's say we have variable D, and variable D we are storing 70. I have variable H, and I'm storing what? 80. And then I want to compare, I want to test Boolean sensitivity. I want to know whether Python can decode which of the value is higher. So I will say, okay, print Python print D. I'm using another operator because under the operator, we have logical operators, we have arithmetic operators, and the special operator or assignment operator. So now I want to use a logical operator. So in programming, this greater than is an expression. It's a full communication in English, which means what? greater than. Now, when you now put H, what you are directly communicating is that what you are telling Python that it should print whether D is greater than what? H. So before I run this code, if I may ask anyone to tell me what would be the expected output. Can somebody unmute and tell me between true and false, what do you think will be printed out? Because we are testing the Boolean ability in this case. Who can try? Are we going to get false or true? Hello? Are we going to get false or true? I need to hear from someone. That is how I will also confirm if you guys are hearing me. Okay, let me call Mrs. Onye, please, if you are still here. What will be the output? Will it be false or true?
False.
Okay, so let's run it and see. So you can see it. So Python is sensitive enough to know. So if you change this expression to change this to this, that has become less than, and that we print what? True. So that is one way you can test Boolean. Like I told us, it has only two values. So now the last one under the primitive data type is undefined. Undefined data type is when a variable is declared without assigning a value. When a variable is declared without assigning a value. For example, if I say A, and then I come down and say what? Print A. It's going to tell me what? A is not defined. So let me run it. You can see it. So as we continue with our analysis, anywhere you see something not defined within your key error, always know that what? Something is missing. So it gives you an idea on where exactly you are to debug or troubleshoot. So when you say name A is not defined, it means that what? There's no value. So now if I put equals to and run the code again, it's going to give me another error, not defined issue again. Let me run it. You will have what? Invalid syntax error. Invalid syntax error. Because at the point of A, you have not even gone 50%. So the best way it could tell you what is wrong is not defined. But now that you have added the assignment operator equals to, then it begins to make sense to Python. So it means that, oh, you are about declaring something called variable, because it's variable that have this syntax. So if that should be the case, your syntax is not correct. And then Python is sensitive enough to point to where the error is. So you have to pay attention whenever you see error to know what exactly is wrong. Now, pointing here will tell that, oh, I did not assign either string value or number value. So if I say, for example, now 300, and I run the code again, it will take away the error. So you can see that with all this, Python is actually an intelligent programming language. Okay, so it's always more accurate. That is why it is relied on as one of the best AI programming language in today's world. So that is for undefined. Now, when I started, I said under data type in programming, we have the primitive data type, which are also known as the fundamental data types, the basics that you cannot do without. Now, we also have reference or composite. Reference here, we are talking about multi-structured data type or secondary or advanced data type in Python. So that is the aspect I want to quickly dive into. So Python advanced data types. So how do we define them generally before we start taking them one after the other? So Python advanced data type are used to hold multiple values. Now, if you look at the variable concept, all the variable we have created so far, they are just holding one value. For example, now let me come here. Name is holding only Prosper. Another place I created variable D is holding only 70. H is holding only 80. What about if I want to use one variable to hold all my details, my first name, second name, and the rest? I need to advance beyond variable. So the idea that led to the invention of this advanced data type, when the entire programming started, there was nothing called advanced data type. That is why programming was so difficult then. And some of the apps were very slow in terms of performance or retrieving command. Because the idea is that every programming language has a memory, which is called the internal memory of that language. That is where the language stores its keywords. All these prints, where are they coming from? They are coming from the program memory called the cache. The cache. So this is what describes program memory. Now, it means that if I want to store everything about, let's say I am building an application, and that application need to acknowledge, for it to work successfully, need to acknowledge my first name, middle name, state, country, my age. 4 different information need to be incorporated in Python so that the program can fetch them from a database when they are needed. So the question I am going to ask myself, how will I pass in all these inputs into the Python memory? It means that what I will have done, if not for the invention of the advanced data type, this is what you will have done. You now say first name, because it's a string. I will say Prosper. Then second name, I will say our middle name, rather, it's a middle name. I'll say I can use single string. Let's say Eloho. Then my age, I'll say, let's say 80. Now, because I want to store just these 3 information, I have to create 3 different variables, which amount to unnecessary consumption of the program memory. You are over-engaging the program. That is why you see apps that were developed those days, they are very heavy. And when you are loading them, they are very slow because they were using variable to capture all the information. But today app, they are using this advanced data type that can use one variable, like I've defined before. Just one variable can hold multiple value. So what I'm going to do is to start talking about example of what Python advanced data type. So the first one we want to look at is called lists. So there is a data type called lists, and this is a syntax. Now, as I walk us through this advanced data type, I want us to understand the syntax and the type of bracket I will be using. So when you are working with Python lists, there is a bracket you use. You cannot use this bracket when you are talking about lists. They denote different things. You cannot use this bracket when you are talking about lists. So, but as we go, take note of the kind of bracket I am using and the way I am declaring as the syntax. So lists is one of the advanced data type. The advanced data type, like I've defined before, advanced data type that can hold multiple values. That can hold multiple values. Let's look at example. Example here. I want to conceptualize the example so that it will look real. Here, create the Python list that holds 4 numbers. So instead of us creating 4 variables, we use list so that we can. So what is the syntax? You start by writing the names. Let's say list 1 is the name of the variable, the name of the list now. Now, the moment is holding more than 1 value. Please, you are not expected to use the word variable. The word variable is used when it's holding just 1 value. But just because I want you to understand it, we can say this is 1 variable, and then I'll declare this bracket. Then we are following the same principle for handling what? Numbers, either integer or float, in the variable. Remember, I said number does not require the quotes, either single. So we are using that same idea to store, to acknowledge the type of data in the list. So this list is expected to be a number list. So which means I will just call the number, use comma to separate them. I will just do something like this. So these are the 4 numbers. Now, if I want to print my list, to print the list value, to print the list values, how that is all the value. Let me use the word to print the list, to print the list value, all the values. I will just say print, and then I'll supply the name of the list 1. Then if I run it, it will output all the value. Now, if I do something like this, if I don't want to use the print method, I can just say list 1 and press it. It will still what? Output the values. Now, this option is possible because I'm using a notebook that is configured what? To speak Python. And based on the way it has been programmed for data analysis. But if you are using PyCharm and Visual Studio Code or Atom, other programming editor, you cannot just call the name of the list and then you expect the output. You must envelope it in what? Print. So this is the standard. This one is only a logic that is possible because of the environment I am in. So I want to get a response if we are following. Mrs. Augustina, are you following? Let me get a response from one of us to know if you guys are still following. Mrs. Augustina, are you here? If you are here, okay, I think, let me see. Okay, all right. All right, now that is how to print lists, all value. Now, what about if I am asked to print only 90 from the whole of this list? I want to display only 90. So there is a way you do that. So that will take us to how to print specific value in a list. Now, I'm going to use a technique called using indexing. It's a concept that I've talked about before, using indexing. For the sake of those that must have not gone through the video to understand what is called indexing. Indexing means that when you have an array of value in a variable or a list, always know that the very first one is numerically represented. Each of the values, each of the item or the elements, they have numerical representation, where the first element in all programming languages are always at 0 index. The next one is 1. The next one is 2. The next one is 3. Why is this one 0? Because if you go by the normal mathematical or order rule, this is supposed to be 1. The reason is that we are using a logic that talks about counting how many value you count before you get to that element. So before you get to 90, you count nothing, which is 0. That is why 90 is at 0. Before you get to 80, you must have counted one item, which is 90 before. That is why you label here 1. Before you get to 50, you must have counted 2. Before you get to 30, you must have counted 3. So that is the logic. Now that I have that idea, I'm going to use that idea to call out the value. So which means that if I want to print 90, I'll simply say print, then I'll call the name of the list where I am expecting the value to come from, and then introduce this square bracket. Now, even when we get to the analysis proper, you will see me using this square bracket. This is part of the foundation I want us to have. In data analytics, when you use a bracket attached to the name of a variable or the name of lists or any other multiple structured data or advanced, it means that you are saying that from the entire container, from the value in the container, you want to pick some or one. That's the meaning. That is what you are not dealing. You are not interested in calling out all the value. So once I put the square bracket, I will now use those number index to specify which one do I want to access. So if I put 0 inside and I run it, it will print out 90. If I put 1 inside and I run it, it will print out 80. If I put 2 and I run it, it will print out 50. If I put 3 and I run it, it will print out what? So that is how you can use this indexing method to call out a specific value within your list. That is one. Now, what about if you consider this option to be a long process? You introduce what we call Python slicing. Python slicing. So this slicing is a concept where you are printing range from the particular index to. That is, you want to call more than one, but you are not calling all. If I want to print value at 1 to 3, the way I'm going to write it, I will say print, sorry, that's not the bracket, print, then call the name of the list, and then the square bracket. So you can now say from 1 colon to 3, which means you are printing range of what? Elements in either variable or list. So if I run it, you see that what? It prints out what? From 80 to what? This. So this is how. Now, if I want to also know what type of, I want to confirm, just like the way we confirm the other time when I was working with lists. When I was working with lists, sorry, string. I want to know, I want to be sure that is Python truly recognizing this as list? How do I know? So I will just come here and say, okay, print list type. And then I'll say print, and then call the type function. and then supply the name of your list, which is what? List 1. By the time you run it, Python will say the class where it belongs to is what? List. Okay. Now, like I outputted some manipulation function to string. If I want to know what are the functions I can actually use to manipulate the values I must have populated in my list, I will just do what? dir, open a bracket, then put list inside. If I run it, it will call out all the functions from Python documentation that can be used to manipulate the list. All these functions: sort, extend, count, and the rest of them. Append. These are functions that can be used to manipulate lists in Python. Do we have question? Please let me know if you have question. If you don't have question, and then we will continue. So they're actually basic. You can sit down with the video and digest all of them, because I just want us to get to, I want to see if I can conclude the basic aspects tonight, so that by tomorrow we'll start applying it in data analysis. And please, I want to advise those of us that are here that please try your best not to miss that class, that very first class. Don't depend on video, but if you are choked that you cannot confine, but if you are free, I will encourage you to join, because we are going to start from looking at Python in relation or relative to data analysis. Everything we are learning since they are the foundation. Everybody that is applying Python, either in web development or in data analysis, so long you are using Python, you need to understand all this. So these are not personalized. These are not for only data analysts. Do we have question, please? I'm waiting for response before I proceed. Question? We are not communicating fast today. What is happening? Do we have questions? Okay. Do we have questions? Okay, so let me assume that we are following. So let me take this off. So that is number list. So before I look at some functions that can be used to manipulate lists, let's quickly look at string lists. How do we declare string list? Remember, I said string means text, string list. So let's assume we are asked to create Python lists of fruits. List that store what? List of fruits. So I'll say, okay, fruits. Then remember what the value this list is going to hold. They are tests. So I have to be putting them in what? Put. So I'll say, okay, the first one is mango. I'll come and use comma. Declare the next one, let's say pawpaw. The next one, let's say cashew. So now if I want to print, the difference between this list and the other list is that the other one is number list, while this is what? String list. So if I print and I pass the name, So I want to show us a logic which I believe I must have showed us before. You know, when the name of your variable is long and you are considering retyping it to be stressful. So the best way you can help yourself technically is you just type the first two letters. For example, now I want to call out, instead of me retyping fruit in full, I'll just type F and R inside. Just type, excuse me, F and R inside. Then there is a button called TAB on your keyboard, tab. Just press it 2 times. 1, 2. It will bring out what? The list of items that have those keywords. So from there, the one you are looking for will be there. I will just click on it just to save my time. Now, if I run it, it will print out all the values. So the same way I was explaining printing value of an element with the index. So I can say print this. So I can say print. I can say print. And then print the name of FR tab, the name of, then from this, select the value at 0 index to print out only mango, just to prove to you that it is not only number list, you can use it. Now, we want to look at some Python manipulating function, or let me call them methods. Methods. It's very important to understand, just like the way we were looking at strings manipulation function. So if you have created a list, just like we have here now, I created a fruit list holding 3 different fruits. And I remember that, I am supposed to have 4 fruits. I'm supposed to have a banana coming after cashew. Now, without me doing hard coding means I have to come back to trace it and then add it, then start running all the lines again for update. I can just apply what this soft coding technique by calling some of this function or the right function that can, that can use to send an errand to this, that go back here, put a value here, and the value should come at the end of the list. That is, should come after the very last element in this fruit list. So I'm going to take the one after the other. I'm starting with, I will just take some of them. You go and research on the other ones. So I have append. Like when I call out those Python list directory, you saw append there. So append means you are joining. Append means you are adding. And in this case, you are adding item to the end of the list. So it's being specific, the location where it's going to add it. It is only when that item is coming after the last element in your list that you use append. There's another method if you want it to come the first. Another method if you want to define the specific location between 2 elements. So that is what append does. Now, what is the syntax? The syntax is to simply call the name of the fruits, the name of the list rather, fruits, and then you will now concatenate. You will now concatenate. Remember, I have told you before that concatenation means you are joining. So you put the dot. So you are joining what? The append function. Now, what are you appending? What are you adding? What are you adding? Will be inside this. And the value you are adding, if it is a string, you quote it. If it is a number, you do not need to what? Quote it. So it's a string. So I'll say banana. Now, if I run this, it has implemented it. the only way for us to see the updates is for us to reprint the fruit, because the last time you printed the fruits, this particular update wasn't there. So let me use comment to explain that. To see the updates, comma, reprints. To see the update, reprints. So how do I reprint? I will just say what? Print. I'll print what? Fruit again. FR tab. Select the name of it. Then if I run it now, you see that what? Banana is now included. Not just being included, it's included after the last element. That is what append does. It's one of the functions that can be used to manipulate the element of what? List. So the next function I want to talk about is extend method. So what is the function of this? Extend, add multiple items. Now, what append can do is just to add only one. But if I want to add 3 fruits at the same time to this what? List, I'm going to use what? Extend. So what is the function, the syntax? The same thing. You call the name of what? The list. Then you concatenate extend function. So what are you extending? What are you adding? What are you adding? Now, the way you are going to do it is to, since you are adding more than one, you are going to bring in this square bracket. And then you declare all the string or the number you are adding inside it. So the first one is I'm adding each other fruit again. I can even think of each other fruits. Okay, let's say what other fruits can I put here? This name of this common fruit are just coming now. I have cashew there. I have mango there. Okay, let's say apple. I'm adding apple, then comma here. Then I am adding each other one again. I'm adding let's say pineapple. Now you can see that I've been able to what? To supply to. Then if I run it, acknowledge. Now for me to see the result, each time you add this, you need to reprint to see updates. You need to reprint to see updates. So I will just say print. In fact, like I told us, you can just call it like this, it will still print. But when I called it like this, look at the way it printed. It listed them what? Vertically. Now let's say we are printing. To list them what? Horizontally. So if you want to view them vertically, just call the name without wrapping it in. So that is one method. Another one is insert. I'm still on what? Python list manipulation functions or method. The third one is insert. Insert is another function. So what insert does, insert item in a specific location. All the one we are applying since, they are adding to the end, to the end, to the end. So if I want to specify where exactly, using the index number logic, that is when I will use the insert method. I said, let me put it here. It inserts an item or item at a specific position. So for example, I want to add, if I go back to the list, the original list, which is this, I want to add another element, another fruit, but I don't want it to come after the last one, before the first one. I want to come between mango and purple. So which means that if it's coming between mango, then I will say 1, because mango is what? 0. So once I use 1 as the position, it will shift this one to the next index. So the best way we are going to do it is, excuse me. So I'm going to quickly say the name of the list dot insert, open the bracket. So after this, the next thing you are going to do is to specify the position by putting 1 and then comma, then you quote the item. So the position should always come first, or the item you want to supply. So let's say I want to supply what is the name of this fruit? Somebody should help me with name of fruits. I've mentioned all the common. Okay, let's say pear. We are adding pear, and that pear is coming. We have stated that it should be inserted in 1 index. So if I run it, acknowledge, now I have to what? Reprint to see the updates. I will just call what? The fruit again. Vertically, so you can see where it appears. Then if I put it in, if I say print FR tab, you can see it. So that is how the next one is how to remove. So definitely we are going to research the remaining one by ourselves, the remaining aspects of Python basics. I just want to make sure that I conclude this one, because once you understand lists, you can actually work, research and understand the other one, because they have familiar structure. Now, let me just take this one as the last method and see if I can quickly talk about one more. Then we can end it there. We are going to work with functions when we start analyzing data. So I don't want to waste my time, but you can research on Python functions as well. Now, the next one is what? Remove. If I want to take out an object, because we have been adding, if I want to remove an item from a Python list, how do I remove it? So you need to know the name of the list, concatenate it with remove function. And then in the remove function, you have to be specific. Which of them are you removing? Let's say I'm removing the pair. So if I run it, acknowledge, then to get the update, reprint. Reprint. Now I will just say, okay, let me just call it like this. And then, so you can see that what? Pierre has been removed from the list. Okay, so the next Python data type I want to talk about is under the multi-structure. This one is very, very important. So your assignments, you are to search on tuple and sets. So I just want to jump to one of them that is very, very key. The first two are key, the list and the last one, which is dictionary. So you go and research on tuple, go and research on sets. The difference between tuple and lists is just in the brackets. And one can be repeated, one cannot be repeated. Research, you find that. What I mean is that if I just say what tuple, if I just say tuple 1 equals to, for tuple, I'm going to use this brackets. See it now? There's a bracket I'm going to use. And then the same way I'll declare the number. Same way I'll declare the number. So if I run it, acknowledge. So if I say tuple tab 1 and run it to print out the same index. But the difference is in lists, you use square bracket. That is why I emphasize at the beginning that most of them have the same structure, but different what brackets. But another core difference of tuple is that I've indirectly even explained it, but I just want to give you that explanation so that when you are researching, it will be easier for you. Now, in tuple, you cannot repeat two values. I cannot repeat 90. I cannot come here now and repeat 90. If I run it, let me see. If I run it, okay, so it's repeating. I think either tuple or set, one of them, just research. But I just want to go to dictionary, which is very important. Very important. Dictionary, which is denoted with what? Dix. Dictionary data type. Sorry, data type. So what is a dictionary? Dictionary is known as what? Unordered collection. Let me put it here so that it's on order collection of key value pair. That's the reason why I want to talk about it, because it's very important you understand dictionary. It has unique syntax from list, set, and tuple. Now, the difference between dictionary and other ones is that other ones can store multiple values, while dictionary is a key value pair data type, which means that you can use a key to access a value, but the other ones are storing the value. A typical example is that I have my first name as a key, then the name as a value. But in the case of this list, I just put the value, Prosper, without saying name. So if I have a dictionary holding name, Prosper, states, data, country, Nigeria, I can use the state to call what? Data. I can use the name to call my name. I can use the country to call the country I am in. So let's quickly look at the syntax. Let's look at the example. This is going to be the last one before I release us. So example of dictionary, how we are expected to declare the dictionary. So I can, let me start with, let's say, person, because we have to see it as an object. Person is an object. So that person have different data you want to collect. So most of your bank details, they are programmed in their app with dictionary. That is why, in other words, they are using dictionary as one of the multiple structured data to hold all your values. So whenever they call the dictionary, it brings out all your details. So these are some of the direct application. So if I say person, the bracket type is this. Take note of that. You don't use the normal function bracket for dictionary, neither what the square bracket. Is this coiling bracket that we use. Now, I said is a key value, 2 in 1. That is what it means, 2 in 1. So the first thing I want to call is name. Take note of the syntax. Name is a string. This is actually the syntax. This is actually the syntax. So there is semicolon, then this. So here is for name, while here is value. Two of them in one. That is why it is called key value. So here I will put the key is name. The value, if the value is a string, you quote it. If it is a number, you don't quote it. So value can be Prosper. That is one. Then put a comma. You start with another one. Value, let's say what? Age. Sorry, key is age. Then value is, I will not quote it because it's a number. Comma. Another key, let's say what? State. Then value, colon is what is separating them. Value is a string, which is what? Data. So just to know the difference between the syntax for declaring list. Then the next one is another key, let's say country. Country. Value. Sorry, value Nigeria. Now, if I want to print, so I will just print person, PE, and then tab, and then run it. So to print all the value. Now, if I want to access, this is where I'm going to draw the curtain. If I want to access the individual, I want to access Prosper, I cannot use index number. I cannot use 0, I cannot use 1. The way I was accessing value under lists, I have to use key. So I can say print, I'll say, for me to access age, I'll put what? Age inside. But you have to put the entire object first. So you are saying that from this dictionary, bring out age. So if I run it, it will print out, say what? Age is not defined. Age is not defined. What is the error? Age is not defined. Okay, so let me see age and see whether I'm going to get it. Dictionary objects. Let me see. Where could the error come from? Let me see. Okay, so let me see. I think is dictionary object has no attribute. So I think it's syntax error. So let's see how we can get this sorted out. Let's debug it out. So if I print, let me try this option. If I print and I say person, and I say person as the name of the object, and I say keys. So this will print out what? Only the keys. Then if I want to print specific value, if I want to print specific value, let me say print, see if I can quickly debug this out. Person person dot key select H. Okay, so let me see how I can, I'll try to use a logic. Let's see how I will. It's already time. I need to close here. So I will give us the update. I'll try and debug it and then start with it tomorrow by the grace of God. Do you have any question? So we have to go. Mother, do you have any question? Are you here? Hello? Okay, so we'll stop here. So please, I want every one of us to go through the video, if possible, before tomorrow class, to try and play with all of this we have covered. Understanding them will give you a good, strong Python foundation. It's very important. Very, very important. We understand how to work with all this. Let me see whether I think you have responded. Okay. So okay, so just before I end the class, I think I have an option here to try just to make sure that we cover this class. So I want to print only Prosper from this dictionary. So what I'm going to simply do is to call the object which is person, call the object which is person, then select, then you have to quote it because it's a string. Then if you run it, it will call out what? Prosper. So if I want to print each only from the dictionary. So in other words, I'm using the key to access the value. That is one of the advantages, because you cannot use the index number because this is key value pair. So if I do print, if I want to access the age only from that dictionary, so I can as well say print person as the main object. From this, select, quote it, let's say what, age, and then you run it. So that is how to print individual item from dictionary. Thank you. See us tomorrow. So please make sure you don't miss tomorrow's session, because tomorrow we are going to start laying very strong foundation on how we can start using Python to communicate to our data.